right, welcome to RB Digital Experiences, episode 18. This is the post-Adobe Summit recap. I'm here with Bryce from RB Digital, Hank Toby from RB Digital. We had a whole team here that was here, just got through several days of Adobe Summit. I want to give you a recap of what it's all about. Hank, I'm going to let you be the one that runs us through this because we had a lot to go over. We're going to see if we can summarize for you, for anybody who missed Adobe Summit, the big key themes, big moments, and what do we think about it, and what's awesome and what's not really ready for prime time. So here we go. Let's rock and roll.
Sure. So we want to start off with the big takeaways, the biggest things of Adobe Summit 2025. What kind of themes were you guys seeing?
I mean, for me, the big one, I mean, they led off with this at Partner Day, they led off with this at Keynote, and they led off with this at Keynote Day 2, and it was all about agentic AI, right? I mean, last year was Gen AI, because that was blowing people's minds still, but I think Gen AI has started to get a little bit like, people are a little bit... It's here, and people are a little bit desensitized because now every search engine allows you to say, generate me a picture of a pickle that looks like a unicorn or whatever, and you can just do it. But not agentic, and I think that word is not even necessarily well known by the general public.
Yeah, I mean, and they had a whole slew of agents and agents talking to agents. And those as building blocks is going to be really fascinating to see the output of that, especially across the partner community, what people are going to use them for.
Yep, totally.
There's going to be use cases that clearly we don't even know right now, and maybe the agents are going to come up with the use cases.
Do you guys see any specific industries or roles that might be like most impacted by the agents?
Well, I think, first I'm going to go for the positive swing on this, right? Is that, so Adobe has a slew of tools, like a whole bunch of tools.
Correct.
Most people, even people who live and breathe Adobe stuff for their entire, that's their entire livelihood, like mine. In some cases, I can't even describe all of the tools. Never mind.
At one point, they showed a chart that had maybe 30 different tools on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And in some cases, and the output of one tool depends on successful input from another tool, and having them all there and working together and so forth. And being an expert on all that, out of everybody who is at Adobe Summit, the number of people who are multi-solution architects who could actually put all of those together successfully and be able to successfully string all that together, it's not a lot of them. We know a few of them, and it's not a lot of them. But so having agents that you could configure and just say, good, well, so once I get this analytics signal, to have that come out of this and go and kick off one of these, and have agents, like you said, agents talking to agents.
Correct.
At that point. So they're all working in concert to be able to deliver a result. I think that's so to me, I think your everyday marketer. And some of the people who are using Adobe tools are not everyday marketers for the most part. A lot of these guys are advanced, doing some really amazing stuff. And some of the people that they put on keynotes, they were doing very amazing, very hardcore stuff. But it's those people who are just trying to get their job done that are getting most impacted.
Yeah.
I think something that I noticed was, and there was a couple different sessions that highlighted it, is the importance of data and having the data accurate and having good metadata as well.
It's more important now than ever, probably.
For sure.
Yeah.
For all of these tools to actually work, that data has to be there, has to be accurate, for it to produce meaningful results.
I can see a lot of legacy customers or people whose data isn't so good struggling to get value out of all the new stuff they have.
Sure, or the output is going to be just garbage in, garbage out, right? There's going to be some outputs that are undesirable, and especially when we start scaling these up. I mean, they're talking about, obviously personalization at the individual level, at millions and millions of experiences generated. One of the concerns I have is how do you spot check that, right? And if you have bad data, some of those experiences might not be ideal, and that can hurt brands possibly.
That's right. Well, I guess we can kind of go into some of the tools that solve some of that.
Yeah, those specific tools.
Yeah, because there are needs like that of okay, good. So we just launched a site and it's got a bazillion pages or something like that. How do we start spot checking these things and look for holes and things like that? So we're in the AEM world, so we're very specifically in site delivery, site construction, and site delivery, right? And but also in all the things that go into that, which means things like asset management and stuff like that too. So finding all the holes in that is a continuous process. That's a lot of manual work. There's a lot of how do you find regressions. I mean, that's something that has for the last decades of our life. Regression testing is a highly manual thing, or it's like to create the automation for regression testing is that is toil.
Yep.
Like the SRE definition of toil, like things that don't get you anywhere in the long run, and a lot of times it's throwaway. Like a lot of Selenium code for testing is throwaway code.
Yep.
Because you just say, good. Oh, as soon as you move that thing an inch to the side, now your testing and regression testing code doesn't work anymore. Right. So having an agent that can go through and say, good, is this thing still busted? When I did this new redesign, did it have SEO impacts? Did it have usability impacts?
Yeah.
Is the click-through rate less than it was before?
Yeah, with those trend lines and being able to look at a whole myriad of data.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a big value add for sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you named it. That's Site Optimizer. Right?
That's Site Optimizer. So that's the first of a number of agentic type AI powered tools that are mostly done. I mean, Site Optimizer isn't all the way in GA, all the way ready for primetime. They're still trying to get feedback from folks like us on all these use cases. But that's one of these ones. So Site Optimizer does exactly that. So for your post-launch use case, if you want to just say, good, is there a problem with click-through rates? Is there a problem with lighthouse scores? Is there a problem with load times? Is there a problem with broken links? Is there a problem with any of this other stuff that it's going to go and continuously scan the site and say, if you went and specified a height on these images, then it wouldn't collapse all over the place, and your cumulative layout shift wouldn't be so terrible, And it can suggest these things, and in some cases, you can go and tell it to it'll propose a fix. Like, I see a bunch of busted links all over the site for this. Looks like you moved it over here. You want me to fix it? Like, yes, I want you to fix it. So things like that are nice. We've already suggested some ways of enhancing it because it's already plugged into your gear at that point. So if it could get plugged into your Git repository and suggest some PRs on things like that, and just be able to say, good, hey, I noticed this block is loading like this. If you made it non-blocking, then it wouldn't load like that.
Yep.
I tried it 3 times in this branch I made for myself. Here's my PR. Yes, I'll approve that, or now fix that and then approve it, kind of a thing.
It should be interesting. I mean, there's going to be a lot of code generation in that regard too.
And,
some of the other aspects of the DAM session that I was at, where they're showing all those tools, is again in SEO and fixing your site, is the alt text on images and assets.
That's right.
And so they bulk added alt text across the board to images live on the fly in that demo. And another interesting thing to me too was then using an AI agent to translate that alt text into various languages as well. Yes. And so while you're localizing content, put it in Spanish, French, German, in context to that, where that asset's being served.
That's right. And I think that if there was a theme, like for a lot of these agents, so in dealing with in launching a site and then running marketing campaigns, right? There's a bunch of it that is creative, or being an architect too. A bunch of it is creative, where you're like, okay, I need to solve this problem, or what happens when I'm in China? Oh, I got to figure that. No AI is going to figure that stuff out for you. You're going to have to solve those problems yourself, right? But once you're there, then there's a bunch of toil. Right. There's a bunch of repetitive tasks that you're doing again and again. Okay, good. Okay, so now we've got the dark roast coffee that's just like the other coffee. And now I need to develop a page layout for this. Okay, good. I'm going to create this, and I'm going to bring it in from here. Like, that's all toil. You're not being a creative marketer at that point. You're you're clicking on stuff. And so that's things like the generate variations. That's one of the things too. Like, okay, good. I want to try a couple different ways to make this work, and then do it. Building variations is toil.
Yeah, for Facebook, for mobile, for whatever end consuming device that your campaign's going out to.
That's right. So another one of those that is toil, that I'm extremely excited about, is Experience Catalyst. So this is something. So this is again, it's a AI powered tool that. So if you are on an existing site and you want to move to edge delivery, or if you want to you move your stuff on AEM, right? So there is some of that stuff which takes a lot of technical acumen to be able to get right. Some stuff is just work. right?
Yep.
So converting a bunch of components that draw a hero on the screen and draw a quote on the screen, that's work. It's not necessarily showing you're not flexing any technical muscle really with that. It's just work. So something that can go through. So this experience catalyst, its whole job is to basically automate a lot of the import job of getting something onto Edge Delivery. So there's an AM importer that we worked with a lot on one of our last customers, and it was work to be able to go and edit the scripts and say, okay,
for all the different templates, all the different variations of the site, and then also how are we mapping it and what are we mapping it to on the in the new location.
That's right. Exactly. So being able to have an agent that sits there and says, good, here's my source, here's my target, here's the style I want it to look like. I want it to look like the new site, or I want it to look like this other site. You can just give it an input and just say, good. Now,
that was really neat to see. And, well, especially because it's throwaway work. You're only doing it once. That's
right. That's a quote that I stole from Georg Hensler, and I'm going to keep stealing it. That migration code is throwaway code, and it's like you're never gonna look and lovingly review your migration code. It's only applicable for that one site, and it's gone.
If anyone would look at it and be happy about it, it would be you though.
No, I still have my VLTRCP script from 10, 15 years ago for sure.
But how often have you used that?
In the past 5 years.
Yeah. So that the whole idea with this is it's basically using LLMs to go and run these AM import scripts, which are a bunch of just walls of JavaScript that say, if I find one of these, turn it to that. If I find one of these, make it like that. But those, you never get it right the first
Those
time.
are use cases that are really simple for AI to solve too.
That's right.
Great.
That's right. And Edge Delivery is all vanilla JavaScript and CSS, and that's where that really comes into play. It's like people are like, why are you using this such and such a framework? Why aren't you using React? Or because LLMs are really good at writing vanilla.
That was what was interesting about what Cedric was talking about was by making that simple, it's real easy to plug in AI and have AI solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Because again, it is just JavaScript, CSS at the end of the day.
Totally.
Simple HTML, maybe some Markdown.
Yeah. So watching that get demoed, I'm super excited for that. I mean, presuming it all works, it would seriously reduce the amount of time for POCs, reduce the amount of time for onboarding, onboarding into so to doing the things which you really want to be. You don't want to be spending your
we're going to be using it here in the next couple of weeks for some demos that we're putting together for customers, and that's going to just speed up that whole process as well, and show the value to the customer real quick. That
take a month, cut it in half.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's right. Because that's what you want to do. Because there's so many cool things that they announced, and the thing to me that's rough is where you're like
getting there.
Well, but it's not even just that. It's like they're so cool. Like all this journey optimizer stuff that a lot of the smaller companies can't even get to because they're like, we heard about it at Adobe Summit, and then we spent 6 months importing content into AEM. Or 1 year of importing content into AM. The budget's gone for all this other stuff that we wanted to do.
I talked to a handful of people, and that was their use case. They don't have any Adobe products. They're here to figure out if they can do it.
Right.
And what they get out of it if they do. Yeah. That's going to make it way easier to get those guys on the platform.
That's right. Because, they're still using a free Google Analytics because they couldn't afford Adobe Analytics because they blew all their budget on silly stuff like importing a website. So if you can contract that, and make it, and shrinkify that budget that it takes to get out there, and because that's commodity work. It should just be quick, and then you can take people who are lead developer quality folks and say, good, now make it go fast.
Right.
Fix this or fix the experience so it's a lot better.
And your content's in the ecosystem too, and you get all the other benefits and can start plugging in all the other. Like you said, 30 different products and tools and whatnot. And
right.
When you said that too, I thought actually each one of those is actually multiple tools in and of itself.
Right.
There's a lot across the whole ecosystem, and it's all starting to really gel together well.
I think that's one thing that I've noticed in the past 2 years. So I went to the Adobe Summit in 2023, and a lot of this, it didn't seem to quite come together, and now they're, I think, reaching the maturity as a product.
Yes.
To be able to see the value of all this
There
stuff.
was a lot of AI at that one too, but it was a lot of smoke and mirrors at that.
It was laughable almost.
Yep.
We walked out of there like, oh, yeah.
And this year, that was, to me, what caught my eye. It was again, still AI, but it was real use cases and real demos, and you're starting to really see it, like I said, gel. And and provide a lot of time saving and cost saving.
Yes. And I think, I don't know if somebody is just were listening on Adobe management or something like that, but I wasn't actually infuriated when they were bringing up things in AI, because they're treating it like a tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm curious if that's because it's actually better implemented now, or if we were just kind of like not ready for it then. We
Yeah.
be warmed up to it.
Well, because I mean,
A little bit of both.
yeah,
Probably did both, yeah.
because Gen AI before was a little bit of like, did you know that you could make an AI thing make a picture? Like people are like, right? But now it's just so commodity that people are like, yeah, can we get it to do something?
And we've been using AI, at least for me,
Mm-hmm.
day to day
Mm-hmm.
to generate all sorts of things. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, but so on the topic though of making things useful, so one of the other themes that is also LLM related that I thought was a really interesting thing from Cedric's top sites site innovations talk was that so SEO in and of itself is a changing profession because of the fact that so many people are, if you do an informational search, you've got search snippets or LLM snippets that are basically answering somebody's question. So a lot of times that's taking away primary traffic from your site. So a lot of times your site just powered the LLM, which is answering the question, which you can whinge at and just say, oh, why is it like this? Darn the Googles for doing this or whatever, right?
Right.
But then what happens is if you're providing a service,
Mm-hmm.
so the traffic that then arrives on your site is qualified.
Correct.
And it is now so much more imperative that you service them well.
Yep.
And that your experience is well sorted, that it's fast, that it's providing exactly what they want, that it's accessible. Like also all these things you can't mess about with your experience stuff anymore. So like the like all the things in assets that we recently saw, right?
Yep.
Where they're basically they got it under this umbrella of like, was it Content AI Foundations or something like that?
Yeah.
They're calling it. But basically the idea being that they are semantically tagging, what do they call it? Oh goodness, I forget the term for it. But basically tagging it or indexing the entirety of your assets repository to be able to make it friendly for an LLM search. So you could go and do semantic search within your assets repository. So you're like, I'm looking for that crazy blue gradient that we use at the top of everything, right?
Yep.
Which that search wouldn't surface anything before. You surface a PDF file or something like that. But now you actually find the asset that you
relevant results and across your thousands of customers have millions of assets, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
how do you find the needle in the haystack?
That's right.
You hit on SEO, and the other term that really was keyed on as well is GEO.
Yeah.
Which, as SEO sort of fades a little bit, GEO is going to be that much more important, which is, generative engine optimization.
Right.
So again, that goes back to having good data that's feeding into all of these AI results. Because to your point, so no longer when users are searching for your product or your page or your service, they're not necessarily coming to your site at all. They're getting the result given to them at the top of Google, at the top of DuckDuckGo in a little blurb.
Right.
And so where are they getting that content from? Hopefully from you and from your content. And if your data is good, they're
That'll
getting
be
good
the top of the
results.
funnel. The top of the funnel changes
Exactly.
for marketers
100%.
to AI generated results and your link being at the bottom of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So GEO is going to be that much more important moving forward.
That's right. And unfortunately, you no longer completely own the top of that funnel anymore, because you're no longer like,
Right.
if you own a great search term and a great informational search term. Previously, you could search for that, and if you've got that great informational search term, they're on your site already. Now it's your responsibility to take them from the top of the funnel.
Mm-hmm.
But now somebody else is owning that funnel, whether it's Perplexity or GPT or Copilot or whatever. So they're owning the top of the funnel because you basically provided them that data. But then now they know that they want one of those that you have, and then you better deal with it at that point.
There's a lot of implications to that change.
Yes, that's a lot. The ramifications of that are definitely unknown still.
Yeah.
And it's what's interesting is you might see again a lot less traffic coming to the end website because of that.
Yep.
How are marketers going to be able to model that and understand that data, and will the search engines and AIs of the world provide that to end marketers, or maybe for a cost, or who knows
Right.
how that's going to come
Depending-
down.
That's what I'm
So
thinking.
you might not even, and you might not know how your campaigns or stuff are going if it's just ending in a AI model that someone else owns.
That's right.
It's really fascinating.
Yep. Yep. But so I'll take this as a segue onto some of the other things in terms of dealing with the customer that you finally get. Is one of the things that they announced officially at Summit was Adobe Commerce as a cloud service.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal for anybody who's worked on commerce stuff in the past. It's so rolling out Adobe Commerce. They had a platform as a service that was basically all their PHP and database servers and so forth that they would host as a platform, but you'd provision static amounts of that and so forth, and you're still hosting all your product data. It's using that as a CMS kind of a thing, as a quasi CMS and so forth. And now that's not that architecture has been kind of turned around. So that's a fully Kubernetes based cloud service that you provision, but you need a CMS as a part of that too. You need a place to store your static pages.
Yeah, what's
and,
the front
and
end of all
templates and all that kind of stuff too. So and the whole direction that Adobe's been going on that is to be able to push all that towards edge delivery.
Right.
Which is great because for the first time you can have, well, not for the first time because true Magento folks will be like, we have a lighthouse score that is, yeah, okay. But for most people who aren't like super heavy on optimizing this stuff, it's within reach to be able to have an edge delivery fronted storefront that is really freaking fast and easy to roll out.
There were a lot of neat commerce demos, and what struck me is again how quick, it was displaying products and pages and updates,
which typically has been clunky, I think.
Yep.
For any user on any site.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, Amazon's really notoriously slow, but they've cornered the market in other ways.
Yeah. But getting up to speed on Adobe Commerce, there's a whole lab that we were in of showing a whole basically a single AIO command, or not single, but it's just a couple AIO commands, and boom, you've got a Git, you've got a place to store all of your content, like your cart page and your default, how are you doing your whatever, all the other ancillary pages that you have inside of your Adobe Commerce. That's all done in document authoring, or Author, or the artist formerly known as Dark Alley, which we have much experience
I
with.
still like Dark Alley, but I guess it's not good for marketing.
I know. It's just like, when you're walking past a dark alley, do you want to enter? There you go. And people are like, no, you're trying to avoid that. So, but you do not want to avoid document authoring.
So it's going to be called Adobe Author.
Adobe Author. The thing at the top now says Adobe Author. So I don't know. I'm just going to stop trying to guess at what it's called. It's DA for me because it's DA.live. But that is now.
They did say officially 3 days ago that was to Adobe Author.
But did they announce anything in any of the sessions that you guys saw?
Just some commerce stuff. Yeah.
So its main niche right now is for commerce deployments. So you basically are getting that. So in Adobe Commerce as a cloud service, what you end up getting is you get the whole commerce backend. So you get a commerce deployment, you get DA, and you get assets.
Mm-hmm.
So in effect, you could roll out an AEM site now with that exact same set of things. I don't know if that was Adobe's intention, but that's what you can now do. Mm-hmm. But DA, as we know, because for anybody who hasn't seen some of our other stuff that we put out, we recently launched the first website on customer website using DA.
Mm-hmm.
So world's first. So we definitely love it. But now, and that's a whole website that has nothing to do with it. They do use Adobe Commerce as well, but there's a whole website that is not commerce based.
It's just a pure Adobe Author.
Yep.
Edge delivery website.
That's right.
I don't know how deep you're able to get on that conversation on where document authoring is going to go in the way that we used it with that customer in the future. Is this something that you think is going to be 2026? What's stopping them from announcing it now if we're already using it?
From conversations I had, I believe it'll be GA here in the next couple months, maybe May, June. We'll see. We'll see with the product there, and so you'll probably see a lot more marketing around that at that point, and just announcements coming out of Adobe there.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's VIP programs going on now currently.
So the one thing too that I'd say about that is that, and I think that some of the use cases right now are waiting for customers to really dig in and implement it, so that some of those marketing materials can be more fully fleshed out. Because Adobe's got a number of authoring surfaces right now, all of which are really great and have things that they're really good at. Right. And so to just be able to say which ones are good at what. Right now, though, if you're considering, so Adobe's got one called Universal Editor, which is an in-context editing surface where you can just basically, you're looking at WYSIWYG, you can see it as you're editing it. The downside is that individually editing, you're not editing it in place. You're still editing inside of like a form. Like
it's still form-based authoring.
You basically you see what you're authoring, and you click on the thing that you want to author, and it pulls up a form, and you say, good, I'm going to fix this thing.
There's a lot of stuff that still works with it, but it's 20 clicks to do something.
It does integrate with things like the generate variations. It's got a button to just go right for generate variations or for experimentation and so forth. So that's nice. So there are folks that like Universal Editor. There are other folks that so it's got its strengths. DA is extraordinarily fast for people to work on. It's so easy to like duplicate pages, as an example. These things are just really, really fast to do. Really fast to say, I want this block, I want this thing, I want this fragment, I want this option on it, and it's just
fast and simple. The barrier to entry is no.
Yeah. So some of that is I think sorting out the plus on it right now. The thing that I think that folks should take away from all this is that, so in the past, we used to get really cranky about people pushing us to go in one direction or another because it had architecture implications.
Correct.
Right? So somebody said, everybody's got to go to the cloud, all things are going to go to the cloud, run out. And we'd get really cranky about that because you'd say, well,
what about this use case?
What about this? What about
this customer?
You haven't told me about that. Okay, you're talking about it. So the thing is about the DA versus Universal Editor is that you don't have to care. It's the same code base.
Yep.
You can flip in between them.
You can use both.
On the same project if you want. You can use both on the same content if you really want.
Yeah.
You know? And we even demoed that going back and forth between two pieces of content on it. So it's cool.
Yeah.
So just if you're
you're not pigeonholed into one. You got both flavors, which is
no. So if you're an Adobe customer and you're like, good, I want to check this out. I saw a UE demo, so I want to try to use Universal Editor, and that I might change my mind. And you're like, good, then you can.
Yeah.
So that's that. So I just think it's wonderful because you have choice. You have choice, and neither of them have architecture things that you really need to worry about that you or I would come into later and say, oh goodness gracious, I wish you hadn't gone that way.
Yep.
So because
Actually, speaking of choice, another conversation I was having is EDS will be likely enabled and has been sort of with the new 6.6 or LTS tool. We're going to have to do some testing on this. It's not fully featured yet, but EDS will be possibly available for on-prem customers as well.
There's use cases that so the eventual direction, right, is to have so dispatchers and publishers are probably not going to be the way of the future. So for folks that are really ingrained into making Java components and stuff like that, that's likely not going to be the way that things that things go. It's super powerful, and it's got so many cases. I mean, we built our entire career around doing things with a traditional dispatcher publisher setup. So it's not that there's something that's bad about it. It's just that there's a lot of things about the edge delivery approach which are better.
Yeah,
there are things that you can't do with it right now. For example, it's not FedRAMP. So if you've got a federal site right now, it doesn't work. You're not going to work on that. There's a bunch of cases where you say, well, what about data residency? What if I want to only persist this data in this country? There's a bunch of things that you're like, it doesn't work for this, doesn't work for that, doesn't work for that. It's got its difficulties with things like adaptive forms. Like you can't really do adaptive forms in edge delivery. So you're gonna have to work out some other solution, some other way. If you've got a form that depends on something else, if you're try to sell a car or something like that, you're trying to sell a house, or you're trying to whatever, you get some other big lengthy contract or something like that. That's not going to happen on edge delivery right now. So. But maybe it will. But
Yeah.
that's just there's stuff to work out. So there's yeah.
Really not no direct back end integrations as well either.
Right.
Everything essentially must be client side and go through an API gateway, which is not necessarily terrible.
No, it's not.
You're separating out the CMS from your back end systems,
Right.
and they have to be exposed somehow.
That's right.
So
And that point of exposure before was the publisher.
correct,
So that was the integration point
Yeah.
before.
or reverse replicated to the author, but
But we've seen that too. And
Yeah.
that's and it's really bad. So
yeah, there are those patterns, not necessarily they're optimal patterns.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they have their case, and I think that's that's a good segue though too onto one thing that was not brought up at all on Summit or at all, like we never heard it mentioned even once, was AM on-prem. So AM on-prem or self-hosted is still 100% supported. Not only is it 100% supported, so 6 dot. I'm going to roll my eyes audibly. So the artifact version is 6.6.0. It's out. It's in general availability.
Yep.
However, the marketing name is 6.5
LTS.
long-term support, LTS. So that is the name of it. It's but it is out. So as of, I don't know, only like 3 weeks ago or something like that, or 2 weeks ago.
This enables what JDK 17, right?
This enables JDK 17, and it'll eventually be later versions of the JDK, but right now it works on JDK 17.
Okay.
It's essentially 6.5 latest service pack, which is 22. So all the features that are in 22. It's got a couple things that were deprecated, stuff that nobody needs anymore. Like what's the older thing before communities? AM social.
Social.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all those libraries are gone. There's a couple
a
of
lot
things.
of stuff on AM social.
Yeah. We supported the site.
communities,
Yep.
yep,
We
for sure.
supported that. But so all those the libraries are deprecated. They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of other things that's gone. But it's a bit faster. But aside from that, it does everything that 6.5 could do, and it's still super powerful. And there's still a bunch of sites that we even support that are still running on it.
Yep.
So it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere for a while. And I think there's still going to be a lot of ways. I mean, we worked with other people like the folks from StreamX and so forth on ways of extending the life of a 6.5 implementation.
Yep.
We're having it work side by side with edge delivery things, which I think that's the other takeaway that I had too, is that there's people. I mean, Adobe wants you to just get in with this on the ways that it makes sense.
They're trying to remove those barriers too.
Yeah, exactly. Which
is smart.
Yes. Yeah. So if you've got use cases that still really are well served by an on-prem AEM implementation, don't move. Right? Now, I mean, you're going to run into license stuff, which is something that I'm not really prepared to talk about right now.
Even on the assets demo, that was another thing that they unveiled at this summit, which is almost universal search. So they were searching for assets within context, not just within the AEM assets repository, but within other locations as well, such as like Dropbox or local NFS shares or something like that.
Right.
So you can just within the one tool find assets wherever else they exist, and I think that's just going to expand to maybe other DAM systems, maybe other PIMs.
Oh yeah.
Who knows where your assets are across the ecosystem? I mean,
oh totally.
We clearly know a lot of our customers have assets all over the place, and some of them have millions of assets and tens or hundreds of terabytes of
That's right.
data across the board. So
But people access those in one spot.
exactly and index it, and maybe you have some AI searches where they're going to be able to filter and find the right assets, regardless of where it resides.
That's right. And I think too that's one of the things about, so when folks are trying to plan their careers and trying to plan their infrastructures, I mean these are always like those 5-year decisions that somebody's trying to make. Like they're not trying to just say, well, what's hot at Summit this year, and they're going to implement it now or something like that. You're trying to make a decision about what technology that you're gonna carry forward at least 5 years.
Right. That was actually my next question I wanted to ask you is what should companies and technologists be prioritizing?
So
looking ahead.
So I think this might just prediction wise, right? So if you're in this space, the some of the big pillars that edge delivery stand on, I think are just really solid. They're just ones that are difficult to assail. There are definitely people that I've talked to even in who are very, very, very talented AEM people who are still a little bit like, I'm not quite sure about this. But they're still very, very solid pillars of like, it's super fast the delivery speed is very, very fast.
Yep.
Even if you say, okay, well, they're prioritizing, just scoring really well in Lighthouse. You go, well, fine, you're scoring well in Lighthouse because it loads really fast. But then it's really, really fast to develop on, and that means that it's really, really cheap to run. And so, and you hope that if it's cheap to run too, that those savings end up getting passed on to customers to be able to implement other stuff. All that being said, and we're talking about DA. I really do think that DA is. I mean, now that it's been shown to the world, and it's now just not some secret project that we were working on.
Right.
I think it's going to be the way of the future. I think a lot of things are going to go that way. AM assets, I don't think is going anywhere. Adobe
It's brought up in like every single project,
piling onto it. But here's the thing too, right? Is that with all this, so last year Gen Studio was released, meaning it was talked about. Most of the things, most of the things that were shown were still Figma demos, right? It's real right now. It's all real, and you use these agentic services to say, good, I want you to generate me a campaign that does this. It's going to go to Facebook, Insta, and Snapchat, and it's going to do this stuff, and it's going to link to this thing. I want you to make me a landing page. Click, right? And this thing is just, and it's going all over the place, blowing all this stuff together, right? And then, but where's that all go, right? So in the past, when we've done like assets implementations, people are like, they're like, what is asset? Adobe Experience it's going to manage my experiences. They're like, all in on this whole, like, all the things that it's going to do. And in the end, it's a folder structure for putting pictures.
Right.
It's like essentially Google Drive for their pictures.
Right.
Maybe some tagging. You're like, you could have done that cheaper. Yeah, that's all we got to. I mean, at this point, though, you need something that is so robustly connected to the rest of all that. Otherwise, you've generated image and stuff. And as soon as you start generating stuff, like, how do you keep track of what's generated and what's not? What was the original? What is it based on? What does it relate to? What products does it relate to? What's performing and what's not? So all of a sudden, the analytics of all that, where it sits, where it's used, it all suddenly
it's muddy.
You have to have something that ties all that together.
The campaigns, the variations, the experiments, and being able to have that all tied into the assets. And,
yes.
And that was the neat thing too with being able to then just modify your asset to put it in a new product or the one they were showing today where, you're changing your alt text based on your target audience. So it was a wine glass on top of a table.
Right.
And were they selling like the red wine or the wine glass? Well, that alt text was highlighting that. It's a tall stem wine glass sitting, sitting on a round table. Or if they're trying to sell the table, it's a wooden, it's a mahogany wood round table with a wine glass. Right. But it changes the SEO implications of that commerce page or that marketing campaign.
Right.
Depending on how you use that. And those again, AI agents that are within the tool, being able to do that and being able to do that per campaign for the same asset.
Right. Which is where, though, because I've seen people in the past too, they're like, oh, we're shopping for a new asset management system, and they're like, well, we were going to go with this other one. We're going to go with AEM but it was a little pricey, and so we went with this other one because it's cheaper, and it does. And if you look on the list, it's got all the stuff. It's got a lot of the stuff. It's got a lot of stuff that we're probably not using, right? But if it's not plugged into all this, and suddenly you lose the context of all this data. Because if you're going to try to write a prompt and say, good, I want you to generate a campaign. So, we're selling, whatever, Toyotas or something like that. And I want you to generate a campaign based on our last campaign, using the imagery from the fall campaign. And then with this, where's all that context coming from? It's coming from your analytics. It's coming from your assets. It's coming from your existing site stuff. And so whatever you have has to be plugged into all that richly, you know what I mean? In a way that is reliable to be able to generate that data. So.
Some of the other asset tools they showed were duplicate finder and just sort of again, companies have so many assets and they've hid them in so many folders tied to so many different campaigns or years or whatnot that they have the same asset, 50 times in their
Right. They're still
repository.
paying creative to go take a picture of the new thing that they already have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so native in the tool and some of those optimizations, like a duplicate finder, and then also I forget what the check is, but basically they're putting watermark and trademarking on assets themselves and being able to make sure that you're not doing any copyright infringement on those assets.
Right.
That a lot of those things that those guardrails that they're building into,
They bring that up a lot.
Yep.
That
it
it's
is so
brand
important.
safe.
Brand safe,
Mhm.
exactly.
And they're productizing that. And that's
Yeah.
one thing the Wild West of AI and other spheres isn't.
Brand
Doing
safe
pretty
is
well.
as far as you're not using anyone else's, you're not infringing any rights, but also in the fact that you can put rules to make sure that the assets are on brand, right? So the one that they demoed was a guy sitting at a table sipping a coffee, and one of their brand guidelines is to not have assets that have too busy of a background,
Right.
and so they show the guy sitting there, and it fails that check. This agent's going through and making sure that it's meeting all of the brand guidelines, and this one didn't. So all of a sudden, right into Adobe Express, change the background out, put them in a mountain scene, make it less busy, crop it a little bit for a different screen, and then put it right back into your AEM assets. Run that check again. Okay, now this asset's ready, good to go. It meets all our criteria for our brand.
Right.
Powerful stuff.
It is.
So
It's super powerful, but I think that was one of the points that they made in the keynote, which you could say that, yeah, of course they would say this because this is a it's an industry event, it's a marketing event, and they're talking to a lot of, this Adobe Summit is like 10% tech people, and the rest of it is
Very marketing.
is business side, right? So fine. So, but they're talking about the fact that a lot of this is the cost of doing business right now, because everybody's going to be using some of these tools to some extent, and so you could say, oh well, I don't know that we can afford to go this way, but the rest of your competition almost certainly is going to. If you take it just in a microcosm of like developers, right? So almost any developer anywhere is not just handwriting artisanal code in VI or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They're using an LLM to some extent.
Sure.
And to the degree that you're like, I don't trust them LLMs, right? Then you're simply going to be slower
Mm-hmm.
unless you're a wizard, right? Than the people who are using it. So if you explode that though to something like this, where marketing is a lot of work,
Right.
and
especially at the scale that
And the
everyone's
cycles
trying
of
to
it.
do it.
and- yeah,
Right.
for sure.
right, and how blasted people are with messaging all the time, right? So the amount of work that it takes to get that right is a lot of work, and the whole job of Martech, our whole purpose in being here, the whole reason why we even have a business is to enable marketers to get their job done efficiently, right? And so we're just trying to get them to be able to do the mostest with the leastest. And so, but this is, I think this is like, if you take something, so they demoed this thing, Project Mystique, right? Where you basically can go from a content brief into a fully generated experience and eventually into a fully generated campaign,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you're essentially just pulling the strings on a bunch of things, orchestrating a bunch of agents that are doing your bidding. You obviously have a vision for what you want, and you know when it is not that, right? Then you can just then you can make this thing, right? And once that is all set up, obviously it takes a ton of technologists to be able to
Give you that
competently
tool.
set that up,
Right,
right?
right.
And make sure that
Yep.
it's plugged into everything correctly. So it's not saying that we don't have a job or something like that. You need it set up. But being set up, you could go from, let me write this content brief. I want this, here's my audience, and it's going to have this kind of imagery, and I want it to have this result, and here's how I would measure the KPIs for that, and here are the channels I'm thinking of, and here's, and then make me something, right? And it starts making stuff, and you're sitting there,
No, change it this way.
change it
that
this way,
yeah.
no, this, oh no, that's totally off brand. Oh, I forgot to put it. I don't even have brand guidelines for this. I should write the brand guidelines
Right.
for this, right? So obviously you create all that, but then you're making stuff really fast.
Right.
And the folks who are now not doing that, and you're saying, oh, well, I can't, we don't do campaigns like that very often. You're like, well, Do you do that because you just don't want to sell stuff, or are you doing that because you just don't have time?
Yeah.
If the answer,
team or whatever.
you don't have a team, you don't have the time. Right. If the answer was, well, it's because we only have 2 marketing guys, well,
That's might be enough now.
yeah, it might be enough now if you had the tools, right? It's not because you don't want to sell stuff.
It actually makes the value of what we're doing a lot more because they need to have the tools set up correctly. Otherwise,
Yep.
yeah.
Because something producing a bunch of AI generated slop is not what you want.
No.
You want something that is,
And I think that's what has been shown so far on the marketing end.
right.
Like the AI campaigns that have made so far just aren't very good. They're not very personalized.
Oh, come on. Yeah, we've all received the AI generated,
But
they're
they're
LinkedIn
seemingly-
messages and stuff.
It's been unlocked now,
Right.
and it is that good from what we saw.
Yeah. If you're right, because we've seen a lot of things though that are simply it's not real. It has it is not connected to any brand guidelines at all. It's not connected to any assets. It's not connected. You're not looking at whether or not I responded to the last one. So you have no analytics data that's fed into it, right? So the person sends the same, slightly reworded message 3 times, and obviously, there was no feedback loop.
Right.
So that's the whole idea with this is that you're going to enable something that somebody's going to actually want to engage with.
And that's still going to be tough.
That is still going to be tough. There is a lot in front of us, but yeah, it's a new world. It is a new world, and I feel like if I was to try to sum this up, there's a lot to learn about right now. And there's a lot of things where I don't think it's business as usual for anybody who's been in this technology space.
Yeah,
you can't just say, well, I've always been a Java developer, and there's always going to be Java, so I'm just going to keep being a Java developer.
Yep.
It's like you got to
change with the times.
You got to change with the times.
Golden age of marketing, like they said, and I totally agree.
Yeah. And this time we actually believe it.
That's
truly. I mean, that's a great point, though.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. I feel like almost anybody who's smart is. I mean, I think it's awesome that they end off with something like AM Rockstar, because you see some of these guys who are super brilliant,
yes,
super bright in our space, right, making things like this that just say, good. Well, then what if I can use some of these new tools to go and make something really super cool? Because there's so much, even stuff that isn't AI based, right? Like if you look at DA is to me an innovative content management innovation, a serious innovation in the content management space, where you just take something that previously was a royal pain. Like AM was awesome in 2009. It was like a mind-blowing user interface and way of...
It was a WYSIWYG.
Yeah.
But it's 2025.
It is a little bit, yeah. I'm not going to ask how old you were in 2009. So, yeah.
12.
So, yeah. Some things have changed since then. So obviously there's a lot of innovation all across the space. And so...
Yep. It's neat to see.
Yeah. So yeah, well, all these sessions are going to be up within the next month or something like that. Most of them are going to be up. So anybody who is signed in to Adobe Summit online, then you're going to have access to those. Some of the things should already have streamed, things like the keynotes and so forth. But the rest of these are going to be available. But in terms of picking up more on this, in terms of recommendations, there's going to be Adobe Developers Live in the fall. But in the meantime, there's a lot of documentation out there. You can reach out to us. There's going to be ways of getting plugged into the Adobe Slack groups. Adobe Discord is a Discord channel for a lot of these new technologies and so forth. So get plugged in. But if you're running an AEM site, or if you've been thinking about moving to AEM, then we'd be willing to talk your ear off and tell you which of these technologies are actually ready for use. Bunch of them are not.
Yep.
A bunch of them are just really, really great ideas that still need to be executed on. But some of them you should be using right now.
But a lot of them, they have said that they're going to be available for beta, which I can't wait to get my hands on it and start toying around.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. This is going to be a very, very busy year.
And for people who were at Summit who were watching this, great seeing you and interacting with everybody.
Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
so many good
I've said
conversations.
it so many times, but it's totally a class reunion for me to see all my former colleagues and former customers. And
absolutely.
I mean, so many great faces.
I mean, for me, it's the reason why I have to just wear this hat all over the place. The number of people that just came running from across the room to say hi, and
I thought we were going to have to hire
Hug.
bodyguards. No flash photography. No flash photography.
It was great. The bike ride, I've actually had a couple people come over to me and say, I missed the bike ride. Are you going to do another one? And I'm like, okay, good.
We will certainly be
You're
doing
going to do
another
it.
one.
We're going to do it.
And
Yeah.
that went really well. So that's
Yep.
awesome. Yeah, thanks honestly to the whole team to throw that together. And I know there was a lot of logistics that went into that and getting the bikes. And so that was pretty awesome. Everyone was really happy.
But we were prepared for Summit. You know, everybody was in the right mood, in the right frame of mind. So that was great.
We didn't bring llamas, but a lot of other people brought llamas. So it has to be because of LLM, right? This is the LLM.
llama. Yeah, I think so. It's got to be. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and once again, reach out to us. But we'll see you. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, Summit 2025.
That's right.
That's a wrap.
Nice.